Hi, and welcome to Money Honey. This is the second episode of Let's Talk Money Honey. Today we'll be talking about college athletes, well, what it means to be a college athlete, and the financial implications around doing so. Okay, so today's very special. I have my good friend Darrell Hill with me, who's near and dear to my heart. We went to high school together, and did you come in 9th grade?
Yeah, in the middle of 9th grade, yeah.
Middle of 9th grade, so he was kind of like the new kid because we all knew each other from 8th grade.
The cool kid.
And, sure, the cool kid. Actually, he was just like the big kid. He was new and just huge. Like, you see this guy? He wasn't always this big, but yeah, you know. So, yeah, he's a college athlete. He was a college athlete. He's doing the damn thing right now, preparing for the Olympics. So please feel free to drop some prayers and some good luck wishes to him in the comment box. But yeah, so we'll be talking today about college athleticism, or what it means to be a college athlete, and money. Like, no one really talks about that, so we're going to talk about that today. So I'll hop into my first question. Okay, so Darrell, can you explain to us your recruitment process and when you were looking at the different schools, or when you would be scouted, when you were being scouted by the different schools, what was in the back of your mind financially?
So I guess the first step of the recruitment process is you go with your family, you sit down with your family, and you fill out your FAFSA information. You go through the FAFSA website, and they send you back the information basically saying, this is before you even talk to any schools. They basically say, this is what you qualify for based off of your family's financial income. They say, this is how much you're going to get XYZ. So when you send that information over to the schools evaluate that. They evaluate who you are, your performances, and where they think you will fit best with their team, and then they kind of set up a scholarship offer for you that way. So when picking scholarships and picking where you want to go to school, obviously financials is the hugest part of it. So it's kind of a gift and a curse not being that financially stable out of high school. Yeah.
So if you're rich,
right?
Are rich people not allowed to get full athletic scholarships?
So rich people get financial. Rich people they can get athletic scholarships.
Okay.
Yeah, but the financial aid part of it is where, you know, like the Pell grants and the different type of grants that most people receive. If you are over a certain income, then you won't receive them. So that's just the difference between your family's income. Okay. So after you send that and you get your scholarship, basically you kind of look at your financial situation. You kind of say, what are you looking for in the school? You know, you say, is it a rural area? Is it an urban area? Is it a big school? Is it a small school? What's the sports programs like? You kind of put everything side by side with whatever scholarship offer you get. Being a track and field athlete, it's not always 100% full scholarship, so you may get a full scholarship offer from a small school, but you may get a 50% scholarship from a large school, so you kind of got to compare them and contrast them that way. So based off of, you know, pros and cons, you know, where you want to be, you know, do you want to be in Lincoln, Nebraska for the rest of your life? I mean, not for the rest of your life, for the next 4 years. Or do you want to be in Houston, Texas, which is a big city area? So, you know, you kind of compare and contrast those two things, and you make your decision that way. Okay. Yeah.
So, so I forgot to mention, Darrell started at Houston, and couldn't stay away from me for too long, so found his way to Penn State.
Right.
So, Darrell, tell us about Houston, right? So, what was your scholarship for going to Houston?
My scholarship when I went to University of Houston was different. They paid for, like, so this is where it gets tricky. Like, when you talk about sports outside of football and basketball, where it's 100% full scholarships, like, it gets different in other sports where it's based on percentages and, like, or we'll pay for this. So, like, when I went to Houston, they paid for my housing and they paid for my books. So I had a housing and a book scholarship, and I had to cover my tuition and fees. So it's somewhere around 50%, pretty much. A 50% scholarship is where that kind of ends up being. But yeah, it really gets tricky. But when I was at University of Houston, it was, let's just say, a 50% scholarship.
Okay. Yeah. And when you transferred to Penn State, How did Penn State treat you?
So when I transferred to Penn State, initially I came in on a 40% scholarship.
Okay.
So which is different because, so this is where things come into play. When, as being a PA resident, coming back to the state of Pennsylvania for school, I qualified for a FIA grant, which is another grant that Pennsylvania residents are qualified for. So when I came back to Pennsylvania, I got that grant. So although I was on a smaller scholarship amount, because I got the grant, I was pretty much paying the exact same thing, based off a 50% scholarship and a 40% scholarship at Penn State. So initially, that was my financial situation coming into Penn State.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you pay for your out-of-pocket expenses? So did you take out a loan or?
Yeah. So part of my financial aid package is I was a full Pell recipient. So I got the full Pell, which was, let's say, $5,000 a year, and I got the FIA grant, which was, let's say, $4,000 a year. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but along with that, I qualify for the Stafford loan, which is I think it's a direct subsidized loan or a subsidized. I'm not 100% sure, but they just give it to you through the financial aid. So that was like $5,000 a year. So all throughout my college years, I had some sort of Stafford loan. So along with scholarships, grants, and the Stafford loan is where pretty much made up the scholarship with my tuition and everything.
Okay. So you mentioned that football and basketball 100% scholarships. So for people who are not interested in, for people who are interested in all sports, would you be able to break down like which sports you can normally get 100%, which sports normally you don't get 100%?
Yeah, so I believe it's football and basketball are two sports that you either pretty much get a full ride or you're not on scholarship at all. The scholarship numbers vary. So football, I believe they get 85 full scholarships. Basketball, I'm iffy on this one, but I believe it's 15 full scholarships.
Is that different per school?
No. Well, if you are a Division I large school fully funded program, these are the numbers. Okay. Yeah, for the most part.
Listen, y'all learning some good stuff. So.
Yeah, so I think at the smaller Division I's, if you're not a fully funded program, I think the scholarship numbers might dissipate a little bit. I'm not 100% sure about that. But I know fully funded Division I programs, it's 85 scholarships for football, I believe, and 15 full scholarships for basketball. Track and field, on the men's side, we get 12.6 full scholarships for men, and I believe it's somewhere around 17 or 18 full scholarships for women. Right, because of Title IX, so it gets weird with that as well. For lacrosse and soccer and other sports like that, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that they are also on the percentage, so it's not full ride or nothing. You can get a 25% scholarship, you can get a 75% scholarship, so it kind of varies based off of your performance level and what they feel you're worth. Yeah.
So should a student be discouraged if they don't get a full scholarship?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that because one, there's always, as a student athlete, there's always an opportunity to gain scholarship. Especially in the Big Ten. So in the Big Ten, you can't lose your scholarship unless you break ethics policies or something like that. For the most part, the scholarships are fully guaranteed. So there's always room to gain a scholarship. So you wouldn't be necessarily discouraged of coming in as a walk-on or coming in at a low scholarship number, as long as you kind of believe in yourself and you feel like you can progress. As long as you do things the right way, teams will usually help you out if you need it financially. So I wouldn't necessarily be discouraged. Also, when you kind of come into being a student athlete, the kind of lessons and life lessons and things you learn and things you gain from the university as a whole, I think are priceless compared to the money you might pay to come to school. So in the long run, I think you'll probably benefit a little bit more by not being discouraged at a low scholarship offer or a no scholarship offer. I think the benefits of being a part of a college athletes program is priceless.
Okay, I'm about to ask you a question that may be controversial. Maybe not, but with you doing so well, and to know that oh wait, do you know how many volleyball full scholarships there are? Because our volleyball team is lit.
I don't, but I'm gonna look it up.
Okay.
I'll have it for you. Yeah.
So for you do so well. You perform so well. And let's say our football team doesn't do that well.
Right.
Is it ever hurt to know that you're not on a full scholarship, but there's people who don't do as well as you and they're on a full scholarship?
Hurt? Not necessarily.
Frustrate you?
Well, you kind of look at it, it's part of the game. You kind of understand it because once you subtract yourself from the situation and you just talk about the sports as a whole. Okay. Football in any program is the number one revenue generating sport.
Okay.
Right. So even at like a school like Kentucky, which is notorious for having one of the best basketball schools and best basketball teams in the nation, always. And if you know anything about Kentucky football, they're not usually that good. Okay. That's just the way it is. But still, Kentucky football probably brings in about twice as much money for the school as basketball does. So with that being said, you kind of understand it. You don't have to like it, but you kind of, when you take yourself out of the situation and you look at the numbers, you kind of like, all right, I get it. I get it. Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Hold on. Oh, I thought I had it. All right, I don't have it.
It's fine. It's fine. We'll get those numbers later for the volleyball team, and I'll drop them in the description box. So this is a question that I want to know. So tuition's covered, room and board's covered, food, meal plans covered. What about your day-to-day expenses? So say Drake or MMG comes to campus and you want to buy a ticket, where do you find the money for that stuff? Like, I know where most students find the money for that stuff. Like, for me in particular, I have a couple on-campus jobs, and I've done internships over the summer, so I have that extra money. How does, like, y'all don't have time to work. Most college athletes, like, when you're, like, not just a walk-on and you're, like that's all you do pretty much, right? So you're here over the summertime. When you're not in class, you're there, or you're at study hall. Like, how do you get money for those kind of things?
So I'll give you two separate scenarios. Okay. So we're talking about a regular student athlete, a fairly decent one, a 50% scholarship student athlete. Man, for like myself, I'll give you an example of myself. So you get my scholarship, and then you get my loans and my grants and everything. And most scenarios, if you have a pretty good scholarship and you were heavy financial need, so you get the full financial aid package, you probably going to get a refund back. That's usually the way it works. So most people, when they get that refund check back, they flexing.
Flex a little bit.
You're flexing. You're pretty much flexing off the refund check. So, you know, even with a 50% scholarship, you have the money, right? But most times the money is loans. So on the back end, when school's over and a couple months later, which I'm realizing now when they send you those emails and they're like, hey, it's time for you to start paying those loans back. So, you know, it looks like people be flexing and they paying that money, but most times it's from those loans and stuff like that. So, you know, you kind of got to pay it back on the back end. Okay. On the other scenario, a full scholarship athlete. So scholarships are based off of what's called total cost of attendance. Okay. So you got housing, meals, tuition, what they would say like miscellaneous fees, like. So it ends up being a larger number than what it actually costs to come to school, if that makes sense. Okay. So your actual bills are less than the total cost of attendance. Okay. So if you're a full scholarship athlete, usually you get a refund check back to cover those, like what would be like.
Yeah, new pair of sneakers.
Well, it's not necessarily for that, but it's just like overflow sometimes. Okay. Sometimes you might get a little bit back on the refund. Also, if you were a full scholarship athlete, but you were somebody of heavy financial need, you come from an urban area and your family wasn't doing so well, et cetera, but you got the full Pell Grant, et cetera. If you were on a full ride, you still get your grant money up into a certain, it's a certain level where they say, all right, that's too much money, you can't get that. But up until that point, you still are able to get your grants and et cetera, so you still get that refund check back. So that's how student athletes get the excess income even though they can't work. Okay.
Do student athletes get stipends ever over the summer? So you know how you hear stuff like when you're not a student athlete, you make up your own. Right. You make up your own things. Yeah. So I was like hearing that like this one person was on a full scholarship and then got a stipend for the summer or stuff like that. Does that happen?
Not necessarily. Not so like what people necessarily misconstrue is that there's always a reason for something. So you don't just get like if somebody got a stipend in the summer, it's probably because they might have been on a full ride, right? They might be a full ride athlete. They might have either be living off campus or somewhere where they have to pay their own rent. And so what happens is it's basically a refund check. So you get a big stipend check. So when you get that check is you're responsible for paying all your rent, etc. So like when you move off campus, when you're not living on campus anymore, so instead of them just directly paying your housing, you get a big check. And so they say this is your check to cover your housing and your meals for the whole semester. So if they get one in the summer, it's most likely because they're a full-time student in the summer, which is I believe 9 credits. Okay. I believe it's 9 credits. If you're taking, don't quote me on it, it's either 6 or 9. If you're taking 6 or 9 credits in the summer, you're considered a full-time summer student. So if you're taking that many classes, and in most cases it's football because all football players take summer classes. It's just part of the game. Okay. So they are still getting those stipend checks and the refund checks in the summer because they're still in school. Okay. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. Now I want to change the gears shift gears to this training for the Olympics. Okay. So, like I already said, he's training for the Olympics. Like, I know somebody that's training for the Olympics. Oh my God! Well, first I want to tell you that I'm so proud of you. I think everybody is so proud of you. I don't know if that gets communicated enough because like you're not a basketball player or a football player that's come from Penwood, and I think they get a lot of love, and I don't know if you get enough. So just know that like everyone recognizes what you're doing, at least my squad does. And we think that it's awesome. So
well, first of all, I want to also congratulate you because you've been doing well. So we gotta what we gotta transcend to is taking necessarily an eye off athletics and starting to put more of an eye on people who are doing successful things outside of the lines, which is Khadija is a perfect example who's doing well for yourself. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I feel the love always from Penwood and everybody. So I definitely feel the love. So thank you to everybody who supports me.
Yay. Okay, so tell us about that. Like for people who are in college now and they're like, I want to train for the Olympics. I'm good enough to go to the Olympics. Or for people who are just growing up and they're like, wow, by the time I graduate, it'll be a next Olympic round. Right. What does that mean financially?
Okay, it can mean a lot of different things. It literally depends on where you are, what event you're doing, etc. So like, I'll give you my situation. I was ranked last year. I was ranked 6th in the U.S. As a shot putter.
Wait, that's right. That's I'm sure there's a lot of shot putters in this.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. So 6th in the U.S. as a shot putter and 14th in the world in a shot putter.
Wait.
It sounds cool. It sounds cool. But financially, when it comes to sponsorships, etc., it's not necessarily based off where you rank. It's more based off of what you've done in the major setting. So it's a platform that you kind of gotta, once you get you gotta get your foot in the door before you can start making money. There's a lot of opportunity, especially in the sport of track and field. It's a 100% incentive based. You don't get paid for things you didn't do. If you don't do well, you won't get paid. So kind of what it is getting your foot in the door to get those opportunities to perform on the platforms that allow you to make the money. Okay. Yeah, so that's what it is. Not that often somebody just hands you a check. It's usually you gotta qualify for this meet or get into this meet, and then once you do well here, you get paid this, but that'll get you the opportunity to get here. So it's all opportunities of kind of getting your foot in the door and establishing yourself as a prominent, successful track and field athlete, and that's when you start making the money. Yeah. So that's kind of where the stage where I am. I'm just trying to get my foot in the door to establish myself on those levels to make the money. So God willing, it's on the way. Yeah.
So like, while you're training right now, how do you live?
So depending on where you are, so like I said, I was ranked number 6 in the U.S. So through USA Track and Field, they have different funding levels. Okay. So I was considered a tier 2 athlete. So as a tier 2 athlete, I get a stipend which was $6,000. This is your $6,000 check. You also qualify for different health insurances, so they take care of you.
Wow.
Yeah, the USA Track and Field takes care of the athletes in a certain way. Okay. So you get those type of stipends, and I also have a wonderful supplement sponsor, it's Earth-Fed Muscle, and they help me out as well.
Okay.
And I also work at Dick's Sporting Goods through a Team USA Contenders program, and they help me out a ton. So you gotta work a little bit. You gotta put your money in here and be smart with your money. Budgeting is number one and most important. You got to make sure that what needs to be paid for is paid for, and if as long as you do well, you'll have the money to do whatever you need to do. But as far as when you start making the big money, now you got to earn that. So budgeting in the off season is really important. So the season about to start rolling around, so that's kind of where you start to make the money. But in the off season period is where you kind of gotta lay low, and the money that you gotta make sure your bills are paid and make sure everything's taken care of.
What's big money in the track and field realm?
It depends. It really depends. Like there was a guy, and this is an anomaly for most athletes. I'll just say that it's a guy, Andre DeGrasse. He just graduated. I'm not sure if he graduated, but he's from USC. He just signed an $11.2 million contract with Puma. Like I said, that's an anomaly. It's an anomaly. Congratulations to him. It's when I seen it, everybody who's seen it was like, whoa. Right, that's like big money. But the average person is, looking at, like, if you get a base salary, if you're like a solid sprinter, if you're not like a phenom, you might get a base salary of like $30,000.
Oh.
Right, which is, like I said, it's incentive based. So that $30,000 can easily turn into $300,000 if you compete well. Okay. So the given money, the guaranteed money is always low. It's always very low for the most part, unless you have a really great agent and you're really successful. You get a high base salary, but for the most part, base salaries and everything are fairly low, and they're incentive based, and you go places and it's prize money. Like you can go to a meet and win $10,000 if you win, and there's like 7 or 8 meets. Okay. So say if you win that, you're looking at $70,000. So now you got $100,000, and your contract might say, hey, if you win a certain amount of these meets, we'll give you $20,000. So now you're at $120,000. So it's as long as you perform well, you can double and triple your money like that. Okay. But on the other hand, when you don't, that's where you got budget.
Okay. Yeah. Well, no, you should be budgeting.
You should be budgeting
whether you got the big money or the small money.
Yeah. Make sure you put away to save for a rainy day.
Yes. Pay yourself first. Yeah. So do you have an agent?
Yes, I do.
How'd you find an agent?
Well, luckily I was blessed to be training with some well-established athletes in the sport. One of my mentors is Ryan White, who was a 2-time world champion. Okay. So I was able to talk to him about, who are the good agents and, who represents you and who represents this person. So what you kind of notice is you look at the athletes in your event and you say, well, who's doing well? Who's getting paid? And you look at him and say, well, who's representing you? So you kind of go down the line and you say, on the other hand, you say, this dude's doing bad. He's not getting paid at all. Who's representing you? So I stay away from them, So you kind of got to do the research, and you touch the ground, you talk to the people. The people, they'll tell you, hey, this is my agent. He or she's doing X, Y, Z for me. He or she was able to get me into this meeting. When I wasn't doing so well, this is the most important, when I wasn't doing so well, my agent was still able to get me this opportunity, or when I wasn't doing so well, my agent was able to help me out in this fashion. So those are some of the things that were important to me when I was looking for an agent, and I was able to find my agent, Karen Locke.
Wow, that's dope. Those are all the questions that I have for you. Yeah. I guess I'd like to end with, do you have any advice or words of encouragement or anything that you would like to say to the people who may be watching this video? Since we're talking financial wise, I'll just say to anybody, money is easy to come across. Money is not, as long as you are doing the right things and you just keep whatever it is that you're doing, money is easy to come across. The difficult thing and what people need to understand is when you get money, how can you use your money to help you make more money, or how can you make sure that you have enough money to take care of your business? So once you get money, make smart decisions. I mean, I think that's probably the easiest thing or the most important thing to talk to about. And also for younger athletes who are going through school, never be discouraged.
especially about student loans, because if you go to the right university and you network and you do your business and you go to class and you get your good grades and you don't BS and sleep throughout all your classes, as long as you make the right networks, you'll get a good opportunity to make more money on the back end. The student loans might not be that big of a deal then. So never be discouraged about a low scholarship offer or no scholarship offer.
Well, thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate this.
Thank you for having me.
I know that people will be able to learn from this conversation. You're so insightful and just knowledgeable about this stuff.
Yeah.
And
I'm growing through it. Yeah.
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 That's awesome. That's awesome. And yeah, so if there's any questions that you guys may have, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see if I can get Darrell to answer them. Hopefully he doesn't forget who I am when he's
Feel free to reach out to me too. My social media handles, Darrell Hill on Instagram. I mean, Darrell Hill on my Facebook, B1G Homie on my Twitter and my Instagram. So I'm not hard to find if you have any questions for me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.